Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play In School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations about the current and future state of travel baseball. Today's guest is Ryan Wheat, Director of Recruiting and Player Development for the Legends Sun Devils. Ryan tells us he knew early on that he was going to be a coach, and he shares what he did to make that a reality. On our call, he was not shy about sharing his thoughts on the NCAA and also about what makes the Sun Devils a development program. I'll warn you that I was not at 100% the day that we recorded this call, but in respect of Ryan's schedule, I wanted to fight through it. And I hope you enjoy this episode of Travel Ball Talk. Welcome back to Travel Ball Talk. I'm fighting off a little cold, but that's no excuse not to get out of bed and go to work in the morning. So that's what I did. Right after I put some pharmaceuticals inside me. Today on the call, we are headed out to Louisville, Kentucky, or you might say Louisville, to talk to Ryan Wheat from the Legends Sun Devils. Ryan, how you doing, man?
I'm great, man. How are you?
Well, hopefully I'll be better in a day or two, but I didn't want to punt on this conversation. I've been looking forward.
Fight through it.
Hey, you gotta fight through it, man. It's just a little tenderness down here in the throat region. Nothing a little hot tea can't work on. So, Ryan, for those of us not from the bluegrass state, can you talk to me a little bit about your personal background? Give us the quick bullet points on your resume, and then introduce the world to Legends Sun Devils for me for a few minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came out of college. I graduated in 2002 from Spalding University, which was an NAIA school in Louisville. In 1999 was the first season of the program. So I was a part of the first team there, and then I transferred from Lindsey Wilson College, which is down in Central Kentucky, and played 3 years at Spalding and had a great experience. Our first team there was 15-45, and then my senior year we were 55-23 and went to the NAIA World Series, which probably some of your listeners know about the allure of Lewiston, Idaho. Memorial Day weekend. So as soon as I finished playing, I started coaching at Spalding. I got to the point in my life or I guess in my college academic career that, I think self-evaluation is a very good thing, and I think people need to do it. I realized that I wasn't going to be a titan of industry or going to affect the world in medicine or law or anything else. So I decided I wanted to coach, and from there I was all in. I went to after I left Spalding, I went to Morehead State with a dear friend and mentor, Jay Sorg, who he took the Morehead State job, which is a Division I school in the Ohio Valley Conference in Eastern Kentucky. And he came from the Reds organization. So he was one of the first guys that I can recall coming from pro ball back to the college game. Learned a ton from him. I was there 2 years. Had a unique opportunity after that. I had someone just say, "Hey, we want you to move back to Louisville. Here's some money to open a facility." And so decided to do that. So we packed the U-Haul back up and moved back to Louisville. And I quickly realized that, it's best for me to be on the field. I like being in the cage and I like doing lessons, but I have to have that balance of cage and field. So took a head high school job at a small Catholic high school here in Louisville, Sales High School, and then realized that, I was about 26 at the time, 27, 28, something like that. And then I got an opportunity to coach at St. Joseph's College which the school's not around anymore. They closed it down a couple years ago, and it's a Division II school in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. And so once it was kind of, my wife and I just had our son Ren. He's 6 years old now, so we had just had him. He was a couple years old, so it was time to move back home and have him know his grandparents and be around cousins and all that good stuff. So moved back home, and I started my instructional business back up and started coaching at Trinity High School. And then I got approached by Jason Brunstetter, who ran the Sun Devils organization, to come over and try to build a program, more of a grassroots type, regional type kids. And then that's when we joined up with the Legends group and Matt Wilson. And so we go from 7 to 17. We have 22 teams in our organization, and this is our second year. And then it's been a great transition. It's been a great way to kind of keep growing the game.
That's pretty cool. I appreciate you doing that. One of the things that immediately I wanted to learn a little more about, what kind of changes are required, and what kind of lessons do you learn when a team goes from the gutter to the penthouse in just a couple of years? From winning, what did you say, 14 or 15 games to just a couple years later winning, what was it, 55 games or whatever?
55 games, yeah.
What do you take away from that? First of all, how do you do that? And what do you learn from that kind of experience?
Well, I played for a guy named Kevin Cox, who was he was ahead of his time, really. He was a guy that was just able to develop players. And there was one way to do it, and that was, practice hard all the time. I always joke with people, our first practice, or I tell this story, and it's funny to me, but our first practice at Spalding University was 13 hours. And as we were getting a 45-minute dissertation on hitting down in the cage at about hour 12, guys were falling asleep. And there's only one way to do it. You have to get on the field, and you have to go at it. You have to set a plan. From a player development standpoint, he basically took guys that weren't going to the University of Louisville or University of Kentucky or any other, major Division I type programs, all Louisville guys. I bet we had you at the NIL level, you always have your JUCO guys, but we had a few JUCO guys, but pretty much everybody else was from a 60-mile radius. And it was, he knew what he wanted. He knew what he liked. And, we hit, we pitched, we weren't a great defensive team, but we were able to hold off our defensive mistakes enough to win games. And it was a 3-year plan. I remember when we went to the World Series, he goes, I really thought this was going to take 5 years. So, he had this in the forefront of his brain. He was by far the best practice coach I've ever been around, and his attention to detail was off the charts.
It's what a say. I thought it was going to take 5 years. Really tells you this guy had a plan. That's pretty. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. He was ahead. Yeah. He was ahead of schedule.
He was ahead of schedule, and where people are now in the fly ball revolution, and this guy had that figured out years ago. I think in 2005, I had to sit out coaching that year. I was having some health problems. They hit like 121 home runs. Oh, and Lord. The 8-hole hitter that year had 15. My senior year, our 8-hole hitter had 15. So there was different values in terms of player. That kid, that 8-hole hitter, also struck out 70 times, but it was worth the risk to him. And, it was it was pretty cool to watch because we could turn it on. Our teams could turn it on. You know, we could be getting shut out for 6 innings, 7 innings, and then all of a sudden we throw up a 7 spot. And that's what we played for. We played for the big inning. We weren't playing for, we weren't playing for one run, and it was fun, and it was aggressive. And, personally, I still coach that way now. It was just kind of at 'em. Give it your best shot. If you don't do it, if you don't succeed, then, go back and give it your next shot. That's baseball. And so it's about playing one pitch at a time and not trying to looking over the course of a season is for coaches. That's their job. But teaching guys how to play one pitch at a time, and if you have a bad at bat, being able to flush it is, God, the most important thing you can learn in this game. So,
also, when you were giving us your little background, you said a phrase that's near and dear to my heart: self-evaluation. I wish that's a lesson that I wish we could sell that in a box and just give that to every single kid out there, and mom and dad and coach, because it's a tough thing to know. Do you think if you would have self-evaluated and said, "Man, I'm really doing good in these science classes. Maybe this idea of being a doctor is a better plan than going and doing baseball," or do you think your love for baseball would have won over?
I would like to. I try to. I'm probably not doing a very good job of self-evaluating here, but I probably would say I would like to say I would have been a doctor, but I could see myself going through 2 years of medical school and I've got to coach, and it's one of those deals. It's Rick Odette, who was the head coach at St. Joseph's College, who's now at St. Leo University in the Tampa area. We always used to talk and be like, man, this is no different than any other addiction. And, it's, you always complain about not having a day off, and then you get about your first 6 hours off, and then you're like, oh man, I didn't do this today for, our team or recruiting, or, I need to work on this. And it seems like you always go back to, just doing your job, and you gotta love it. If you don't love it, it's a grind. And I use that. To me, the word grind is just like the worst word in the world, because I couldn't imagine telling my garbage man, "Hey man, I'm grinding today. I got to go to practice."
Yeah.
Or a player going, "Hey man, I'm grinding. I'm working my butt off." Like, no, it's a privilege. Like, I was very lucky to be able to get into coaching right away out of college. Now, financially, it's a burden. You gotta learn how to hustle. You gotta learn how to make it. You gotta learn that 100 pennies is the same as $1. And I went 10 years without having a full-time job. So
you just led me to my next question. You mentioned a guy who basically approached you with an opportunity. Well, first of all, I'll say congratulations, because those philanthropic type of people who have money don't just hand it out to people they don't think they can get a return from. Okay?
Right.
They must have seen something special in you. So, congrats on that. But how do you think how's that come around? Was it something you were looking for, or it was literally out of the blue?
It was literally out of the blue. I mean, I got married at 23. It was like 2 weeks after I turned 23, and my wife and I are still together. And, she has been along on this ride from day one. And, she's the ultimate kind of coach's wife. And so it was you always find a dilemma in this game, where am I going to coach or am I going to go make money? And for me, being married, my wife has a couple degrees, and her not being able to necessarily find the job that she wants because of all the moving and everything was kind of like, okay, one of us is going all in. And so I always had that balance of, okay, I'm out here as a volunteer assistant at Morehead State and coming back to Louisville to do lessons just so we could pay our rent or just so we could eat or, whatever the case may be. And then it's like, I guess it's different, different parts of your life. Finally, I was like, man, I can't do this anymore. This is crazy. People were telling me I'm nuts, and I kind of bought into it. And then when we shut that facility down, I went back to coach at St. Joseph's College for $3,000 a year. It was like, you know what? This is who you are. This is what you love. Figure out how to make a living out of it instead of, constantly going back and forth. So that was the tough decision that we made, and it was, it was fun, and it still is fun, but it's totally different now. So, which is good.
No doubt. Impressive. Well, let's tell you what, let's pivot just a little bit and talk baseball. We learned a lot. I hope our listeners at home are kind of listening to your story, and hopefully that's providing them with some hope and inspiration. But now I want to talk a little bit about baseball. When we spoke the other day, if coaches out there listening, if you ever hop on a call with me to do one of these podcasts, there's a really strong chance I'm going to want to talk to you for a few minutes before we do the podcast. Call it a pre-call interview with my production team, except in this case, I'm the production team.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I like to find out what's different about the organization. Okay, what's different? And Ryan came out of the chute with, we focus on development. Well, guys, development's a big buzzword right now. I don't know if you've noticed. And we've had some coaches on here who've talked about development, and what they're doing in development actually is pretty unique and different and impressive in its own right. So, forgive me, Ryan, when my eyes rolled a little bit when I heard the word development again. But then you started kind of talking about y'all's program a little bit, and that's when I said, oh, okay, that is different. So can you fill us in on what some of these things that are a little bit different are?
Yeah, absolutely. And trust me, if I could find another 2 words to replace player development right now, I would. Just because it's become a catchy Twitter type thing, and it's one of those deals that the guys that truly focus on player development and do player development it's almost like a way of life for them, and there's not another way to go about it. So for us, yeah. So about our team, the majority of our kids are Louisville kids. We're not a huge market. It's cities like right at 1 million people. Now we have some surrounding counties that are bigger, and we kind of go to different parts of the state, but we're not a program. We're not a national program, and we want kids that are somewhat local, regional. And so in the summer, our plan is we'll be on the field. If you start a tournament Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, hopefully Sunday, we'll turn around and get a lift in on Monday and, have a light workout. Tuesday, we'll be on the field with these guys. If you play on Thursday, then Wednesday we'll be on the field with these guys. We're trying to give them the experience of, hey, this is what it takes to get better. We can, there's no magic potion. There's no magic words. It is, your action is the best teacher that you can have. And the more times you take a rep in that specific action, that's how you get better. it's really no different than what happens in minor league baseball. And, we try to have coaches that coach specific areas, and those are the guys that develop routines and develop the programming for not just the 17-year-old team, but basically for us, that everyday thing is 14 to 17. And, we try to give them a specific plan, and we go from there. Yeah, it's something I stole from the book, after the Cubs won the World Series, was we tried to make an individual player development plan. In the book, it's called the IPDP. And when I was at St. Joe, we did this. We just didn't really have a name for it. So we just basically have an individual player development plan that goes, okay, look, Ryan, here's your weaknesses. Here's your strengths. This is parts of your game that you're going to have to improve. Your goal is to play at a Power 5 Division I school. Well, these areas are going to have to get a lot better. And if they don't get better, then, it's you're either A, not capable, which I think is a big part to it. No matter how hard you work, sometimes you're going to reach your level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that firsthand. I always consider myself a hard worker, and but I just wasn't athletic enough to go play at the Power 5.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great collegiate experience. I still work in baseball today, and it's you have to get in where you fit in, and I think that's the cool part about this, is that in football you can automatically not be considered for any school because of how big you are or how fast you run. And basketball, if you're not certain height or certain vertical or certain wingspan. But in baseball, man, it's all shapes and sizes. It's really good athletes to some guys that aren't very good athletes, and now they're able to compete at the highest levels because of that.
Let's take a short break from this call to talk about my day job, video. In 2019, if you aren't leveraging film to market your guys, you are doing them a disservice. So where do I come in? Well, filming one guy on your iPhone and texting it to coaches or posting it to Twitter is easy. But filming 25, 50, 100, or 200 is really hard. And that's why you haven't done it already. That's why smart coaches partner with Play in School. We do all the work. We come to you. We can film 100 guys in the time it would take you to film just 4 or 5. If you'd like to see every team we partner with, visit playinschool.com/teams. Contact me today to discuss the details. Now, back to the call. While you were talking about that, it made me think a little bit about, nothing, not dogging on anybody, but there's a lot of clubs out there who, they play the standard Friday, Saturday, Sunday event during the summertime, and they might mix in a practice on a one night a week, maybe Wednesday night or whatever. But there's a couple days in there they're not even seeing their guys. So you're seeing your guys either on the field or in the weight room every single day of the summer?
Yeah, so we have our indoor facility is Legends, and so there's a weight room in there, and so the guys will go in and get a quick lift in, just a maintenance type lift, and then they have access to that in the summer. So really they should probably get in there Monday and Tuesday. We just make Monday requirement.
That's like a team lift.
Yeah, somewhat. They come in different slots, and it's more of like a high school organizational type lift.
Okay.
And so it's some of these kids still work, and they still
yeah, sure.
They gotta have social lives too.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of try to fit their schedule. So our workouts are going to be in the morning, and so they wake up, they get it done, they're out the door. They can go, if they work, they can go work. If they go hang out at the pool all day, they can go hang out at the pool. If they got a girlfriend, they can go and hang out with her, and whatever the case may be. But we just want to give them the opportunity to get better. We don't have guys that are, and this is not a knock on them, and we try to explain this. We don't have guys that are bona fide, this kid's going to be a high school draft pick, or this kid's going to be a committed 8th grader. We're starting to get those guys.
Sure.
But it's more of they got to put in the time, and and that's the great part about baseball, is that you can, if you enjoy practice, you get so much better. So not only are we giving them the opportunity to practice, we're trying to get them to learn how to enjoy it, because in college you practice way more than you play. And then if they're lucky enough to make it to pro ball, I think there's this illusion of, well, you just kind of show up and play, which, us guys that work in baseball know that's not the truth. All the minor league guys have left, and they just left, and we were talking about minor league salaries, and I make about $3.20 an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's the time that you put into your craft or your game doesn't always reflect results, but you got to at least know that you put in everything you put in to be the best you can be. So
now, the other thing we talked about in our pre-call interview, if you will, was, we'll just get right into it. No segue needed. The NCAA, or as I like to refer to as the mob.
Right.
Yeah. You had some thoughts of your own, and I thought I'd kind of open up this platform for you to, share some thoughts about this organization that always puts the players first. So, where do we start? Where do we start with this?
Oh, well, I think the best place to start, and I can already feel my blood pressure rising when you just say those 4 letters, and it's like,
step away from the ledge. Step away from the ledge. Right.
So, number one, I think the biggest thing right now is there's 2 parts to this that I think that the NCAA. I have my theory on. To me, I just don't think they care, and all they're doing is just trying to cover their ass and put in these rules to make it look like they're doing something. Okay, so you start with the new. Their whole big thing was, hey, we want to try to stop the early commitment stuff, and it's 8th graders, there's a problem in baseball, right? Because kids aren't playing other sports because they feel like they have to go to fully invest as a 7th grader to get recruited as an 8th grader. Well, they put in this rule where you couldn't take an unofficial visit with coaches present, with anybody from the coaching staff present. And I thought there was, when I first heard the rule, I was like, man, they're really doing something here. Man, they're taking a stand. Then the next thing you know, and we have guys that are going on unofficial visits and not meeting with the coaches, committing. And it's like, well, hold on, this did nothing to slow this down. This did nothing to stop what is a perceived problem. Is it a problem to me? It is, just because a commitment could be loose on both ends. But, it's a situation where they go in, they put all this regulation in just to make it really easy to circumvent the rule. So I think what the NCAA has to do is, okay, do we have a problem with this or not? And if we do have a problem with it, then we need to stop it. But not sit here and just constantly hinder programs, hinder coaches into making it giving them avenues to get around the rule. And that, it drives me insane. It's, my personal opinion is, if you're ready to commit, then you should sign.
100%.
It's
100%.
binding. It's binding on both ends. So if you're an 8th grader and you commit to State University, okay, well, then you need to be in a binding contract between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, what it does is, okay, it stops the recruiting process for the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I have good friends that, and I respect them, that, they get commitments from young kids, and I get it. It's, you're trying to get the best player that you can get. But now it's just a wait and see game, right? Now you see on Twitter a kid that's been committed for 3 years. I've decided to decommit. Well, I don't know if that's really, I don't think that's really the kid at that point, deciding 2 weeks before the early signing period of a senior year to decommit from the school that he's been committed to for 3 years. So, and it's a situation that if they sign, you'll see it stop.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. You've probably heard me talk about this on the show. I have no problem with the early commitments. I have a problem with the decommitments. And so it feels like, let me try and paraphrase. The NCAA is putting Band-Aids on a cut artery, and a Band-Aid is not going
right.
Band-Aids are for blood, and when you have cuts, but not when you have an artery that's wide open like that. And they need to address the actual issue. And
I think if the NCAA would get out and talk to A, high school coaches, B, travel coaches, and hear our side of this. Man, we have kids under extreme amount of pressure, and they're not even in high school yet.
Yeah, they
think that
insane.
They have to be. It's not good mentally. It's not good for players to be like, I'm constantly behind. I'm not saying they have to think they're constantly the best either. I think it's, you have kids that are sophomores in college that are good players. How, guys that would be great fits at the mass majority of colleges across the country that are deciding not to play in college because they haven't been recruited yet. And it's sad because, me personally, I graduated high school in June of 1998. I didn't sign my letter of intent till July 29th of 1998.
Unbelievable.
And
now sophomores are, basically disenfranchised because they aren't getting any love, so they're ready to shut it down.
Right. And number one, they don't know the recruiting rules. Number two, they think if they're not going to a Power 5 school that they're not good enough to play. And it's like, you have to constantly, and that's the biggest battle that we fight is, it's tempering expectations. And it's going, we had a kid that didn't hit a number on the radar gun. And it was like, we have multiple kids that do this. They don't hit a number on radar gun. And it's like, well, I'm not getting any better. It's like, come on, man, it's January. Like, what are we doing here? They just don't understand. All they do is they read the stuff on Twitter. They see it on Instagram, and they don't understand that they're not even close to being a man.
Mm-hmm.
And, and it's a situation that if the NCAA truly wants to make this better, okay, then they will say, look, you sign when you commit, announce it on Twitter the day of. Don't even have signing periods. It's okay. I commit. Cool. Here's your letter of intent.
Yeah. Shut it
Okay?
down. I just can't get over coaches wanting to recruit 5 classes simultaneously, and there's really nothing binding that commitment. So you get that kid as a 9th grader, you have to keep on him, keep showing him love until signing day. It's just exhausting.
Right.
Exhausting.
I mean, you're recruiting JV games. You know, if you recruit a freshman at a good school, at a good high school,
sure,
you have to go to his freshman or JV games.
Sure.
And, you know, it's just so you can, you know, continue to show him love and you know, sit on him a little bit and make sure other people aren't there. And, you know, I think it's one of these deals that there is an easy solution for this. You know,
it's
no
easy. It's easy, but in some ways, I think it'll be radical, and I think that's going to be hard for people. It's going to be like pulling the Band-Aid off. Yeah, it's easy. It might hurt for 1 second, though. You know.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day,
then you see who's real.
Yeah, I just don't know if the NCAA really cares about baseball.
I agree with that.
You know, like in our little bubble, it has had so much progress, and I think the popularity of the college game is probably at its height right now. But I don't know if they really spending a lot of time over at corporate in Indianapolis worrying about it. You know, because
which is crazy.
You know, because a big game's going to get 1,000 people. A big SEC game might get
right.
several thousand people. That's nothing. That's nothing compared to, you know, a medium to small size basketball game. Right? I mean, I played in front of nobody all the time. A couple moms and dads, a couple girlfriends, you know, random frat guy. That was like normal.
Right.
That was normal. You know, so, you know, money, what do they say? Money talks, BS walks. So until the money pushes the issue. But at the end of the day, I think the health of the kid and the student athlete needs to be put first. And when you leave them in limbo with a commitment that's not a commitment, I think you're hurting the kid. And to be honest with you, I think you're hurting the coaches too.
You are hurting the coaches, and I think that's the you know, I understand why people do it. I do. I mean, I get the point of it. I mean, it's because you're trying to get the best player possible and stop him. Okay, if you are a mid-major and recruiting young kids, I understand that 1,000%, because you don't want that kid to go and commit to walk on to Power 5 school. You know, doesn't matter. Power 5, mid-major, you're all trying to win the same championship.
That's right.
And it's, you have to go in and it's either get with the times or get passed by. And the coaches are under extreme amount of pressure with that as well. And then it's balancing out roster, and it's, you know, it's doing all these different things. But now you're talking, you know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would never begrudge a coach for recruiting a player. That's their job. You know, so
exactly.
There's nothing in this conversation or any other conversation I've had on this topic is ever about a college coach. It's always about the NCAA. You know,
right? And it's like you said, man. It's putting a Band-Aid on something. Hey, look, we're listening. We're trying to make the rules. I talked to a coach this year that was under the impression, you know, he's a Power 5 coach, and he was under the impression this was going to slow down, and it hasn't, and it won't. And, you know, it is what it is. But I mean, you got to figure out how to do what's best for the player, and how to do what's best for the coaches and the returning players on the roster. And it's, you know,
yeah, I
don't know. It's one of these situations that,
okay,
I think if you get control of it now, you're able to set the standard going
Okay.
forward.
And NCAA, if you're listening, at Play in School is my Twitter. Go ahead and DM me. Be happy to sit down and talk with you for a little while.
That's
Let's
right.
let me tell you, we could sit and rag on them all day, but let's turn the page a little bit and talk travel baseball, which is, you know, in some ways the point of travel ball talk, if you will. What do you see going on out there in the travel ball world? What's what's got you down? What's got you excited? From what you're witnessing, in your neck of the woods.
Yeah. So the exciting part is you have a lot of players, even if they're not involved with your organization, that want to go out and play better competition, and they want to go out and they want to compete. I think it's not only is it vital for them, but it's vital for. I think it's what's best for the game. It's going out and trying to. Back in the day, it was be the best in your area, be the best in your, and then it kind of progressed to be the best in your state. And now it's kind of be the best in your region. And if you're good enough, be the best in the nation. And so, which I think is a positive thing. I think it's an extremely positive thing. The negative right now is just how much it costs. And, we play tournaments that are $3,000, and that it becomes very costly for parents, and now you have, it's almost turning into a country club sport. And as a baseball guy and somebody who's done this for essentially my whole adult life, that stinks, because that are kind of, I don't think that's just baseball. I mean, I think it's travel basketball. There's a lot of costs associated. Football has never depended on the travel circuit, but now you see them starting to do combines and camps earlier in a player's development. And, that's my biggest thing. And if, I know Bob Reichman was on the show, and he talked about a radical move that they made. They kind of just drew a line in the sand and said, we're not doing it. And we're going to focus on player development and focus on, I think it's 5 major events a year. And so, which I, tip my hat to them, because, we feel like we've got to play in the 7-8 tournaments, and we're constantly traveling and living out of duffel bags, and, just to get our kids the exposure that they need.
One thing I'll add in here, actually being released today. So by the time you're listening to these words, it'll have been out for probably a few weeks. Eric Dubose from East Coast Sox explained, he walked me through what they've been doing for several years, and it sounds amazing. They spend basically 5 straight weeks playing themselves. Now, it sounds funny when you say that, but they have 29 really pretty good teams. And so,
right.
And so every weekend, it looks like if you just rolled in and walked in off the street, it looks like an event that you would normally pay $1,000 or $1,500 for, right? Each team's going to play 3 to 4 games. You're playing them on college fields, a couple college fields, and maybe a local high school. So it looks and feels like that event that you would normally spend, $1,000 or $1,500. Now, they're not doing that. So imagine that. Imagine 29 teams times $1,000 times 5 weeks. The cost that would be unbelievable.
Right.
It's like $250,000, right? So
right.
Yeah, they're still going to have expenses, right? They still have to rent these fields and get umpires and do all these things, but it's pennies on the dollars. And it's we talk about it in that show, and I don't know if you're a small club with 2 to 3 teams, you can't do that for 5 straight weekends. But if you're a medium-sized organization with 10 to 15 teams, maybe there's a way to do it. And now all of a sudden you can trim some expenses, and that's one of the exciting things about doing this show is trying to learn little things like that, right? Like, you want to go out and play baseball. Do you have to drop $1,500 to the tournament plus a gate fee plus a parking fee to go do that? Like, is that mandatory and stay in that tournament hotel? Like,
right.
You can play. We didn't do any of those things, and we still played competitive baseball, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I think part of this show is trying to find some creativity to pass on, and trying to find some ideas that can be borrowed and stolen.
Yeah. So, but like for us, I think what we can do, and being part of the Marucci Founders Club, is, we want to try to do the same thing, but we want to, we are more than happy to meet. We have access to a $5 million stadium that's being built this summer, so I think this is something we can do down the road, is that, okay, we bring in 4 teams and, we all play a doubleheader. We bring in 6 teams, and something where we can just do it one location.
Yep.
I remember going to recruit in Perfect Game, and I spent more time in the car than I did at the field sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it was, for me on a small school budget, that was hard. And so it was a situation that you have to, you basically have to go in. If you can bring talented teams to one spot, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
And it doesn't have to be 50. It doesn't have to be 50 of them. Like, literally six talented teams works.
Yep.
One facility. Oh, it's little to no cost when you're doing it that way. Little to no cost. And for those who are listening at home, it doesn't have to be 6 or 8 or 10 powerhouse teams, right? Like, it's a really nice idea to say, hey, we're going to get 8, stacked teams and go over there to UK and play baseball for the day. Well, you don't have to do that. If you have it, if you had 6, 8, 10 teams of dudes who are at a mid-major or maybe a D3 level, well, you do that same event at a mid-major or a D3. Because you want to give those kids the exposure to that place, that program, those coaches, and invite the appropriate coaches, right? If you have 6 teams full of elite dudes, well, the D3 guy maybe doesn't need to show up to that one, right? Invite the appropriate guy, and vice versa. If you're doing an event for D3, D2, mid-major guys, you don't have to invite the SEC coaches to that event. The philosophy still works.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is, trying to cut down on A, travel, B, it's I have a 6-year-old son who loves baseball, and I just sit there and think to myself, my goodness, man, I'm gonna have to leave when he's 14. I'm gonna have to leave on a Tuesday night, and somebody that's in the instructional business, that gives me basically 2 days a week to work. And so it's like, wow, how is this going to happen? And you're racking up food bills and hotel bills, and just getting into the park is an expense. If you kind of break it down, you're just getting nickel and dimed on the road. That's why people don't travel that much, because it's expensive. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that what the East Coast Sox are doing, their program is outstanding, and those are a bunch of guys that get it, and they understand that, they understand that let's go play our events that our kids can really compete at and have fun with, and then, let's try to go out and get these kids better and get them the exposure that they need.
I want to ask a couple more questions. We'll start working towards wrapping up and be respectful of your time. One of the things I noticed down on the bottom of your website. See, I'm kind of a tech geek, right? Like I love all the web stuff and all the modern technology. And I see you guys are partnered up with League Apps now.
Correct.
Right. I want to learn a little bit more about them. You know, it's one of my pet peeves. If you kind of go through all the stuff I talk about, it's about communication, right? So I know that they have some tools that make communication easy for travel ball clubs, but I want to find out straight from the horse's mouth, from you. You know, somebody who it looks like you guys are working with them. Can you? And this is not a paid commercial. This is not a paid promotion. By the way, League Apps, if you want to advertise, at Play in School is my Twitter account. You can DM me there. But talk to me about what the heck are you using League Apps for, and if it's helping you on your communication with your organization.
Yeah. So League Apps is a travel organization's dream, to be honest with you.
It's a pretty good endorsement.
Two things that you can send checks payable to Ryan Weed at no, but it's but there's two things that, number one, coaches are not great communicators overall, meaning to the parents. They generally communicate with the kids well, that's why they're coaches. So, you know, for me, coming from the college world where I never dealt with parents, right? It was hey, how's your trip? Shake the hand, you know, little Johnny's doing great type deal, and that was the extent of it. Where now we're dealing with, you know, teenagers and not men. And so we have to kind of keep the parents in the loop. And I'll be the first to say that's something I have to work on. You know, we still want to teach the kids that, you know, hey, what we communicate to you needs to be communicated to the parents, but we still have to back it up from time to time and send an email out or text or whatever the case may be. But their platform's simple. I can just click messaging and can send an email and a text on the same thing. So I have a big long email about whether it's uniforms or practices or workouts or whatever the case may be. And then I can back it up with a text that says, hey, be sure to check your email, you know, important information. But the second part is, and this is our first year using it, so we're going into this summer, and it's going to be great because now we're able to just send a text from that, you know, from an app on your phone that gets out to all your teams. You know, and I think that in that text, you can have your players, you can have your parents, you can have just the players, just the parents, combined, doesn't matter. So now, in you know, for us, we have a couple of teams at each age group. I can put something out to the whole age group. So it kind of walks you through on, you know, how to communicate. That's you. And the second, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That right there alone is such a pet peeve of mine. You know, I deal with organizations. They'll say, hey, send me the info, and then I'll send it to the coaches so they can send it to the players. And I'm sitting here thinking, you own this organization, but you don't have the ability to push one button to communicate with your families. And the you know, that telephone game, that's how things get lost in communication.
Right.
All right, go ahead.
That's exactly right.
You were about to hit another bullet point of something that you like within their app.
Yeah. So the other part that we all stink at is collecting money.
Huh.
And, you know, unfortunately it costs money to play on these teams. And, you know, because so for me, and I was telling you, you know, before we started this, that there have been times where I've been out of pocket on things, and just because a tournament had to get paid and I didn't collect the money. Yeah. And, you know, it's like, it's my fault, but, you know, now what you can do is you can set up on their site that, you know, you put their credit card, they put their credit card information in when they build their profile, and it hits on a certain day of the month. They get to pick the day. You know, I mean, it's kind of one of those deals that you make it easy for them. And so, so now there's no reason to not collect the money.
It used to be.
You know,
I could be wrong, but it used to be that it felt like to me that this world really used to like writing checks. I couldn't figure out why. You know, the baseball moms and dads seem to like to write checks. Now, imagine you got 100 players in the organization at the older age groups. If you know, a handful of those miss one payment, you're out of pocket 5, 10, 15% of your year. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's not, you know, we're all doing this. We're all trying to keep costs as low as we can, and you know, so there's not a lot of wiggle room. And so so you have to go in and, you know, the collection part to me was the biggest thing that, you know, we have to make it easy on people. Money is a sensitive situation with anybody.
Sure.
And so their information has to be secure, and then, you know, and the organization has to collect. I mean, has to collect, because they're not calling individual parents. Tournament directors aren't calling individual parents saying, "Hey, you got that check, man?" You know, like, it's your job to collect the money, and that was something I was terrible at. And
this is not a commercial for league apps. If you've been following along since the beginning, you probably remember me asking coaches specific questions about their preferred tools, their, you know, what tech do they like, and, you know, I didn't ask it to every coach because I knew that some of these guys are, you know, keeping it pretty simple. Hey, they're collecting some paper checks, and they're using group text message on their phone. Hey, whatever works, you know what I mean? But with margins as thin as they are when you're running the team, missed payments are sort of a big deal. And the thing about the group text, not to knock the group text, but I just have this vision of getting an accidental group text from a teenage kid in the middle of the night, right? Like a late night accidental, like he picked the wrong group, because he probably has a group that he thinks the coach isn't on, and all of a sudden he picks the group with the coach, or even worse, with the parents and the coach. And oh gosh, it just makes me cringe. And so this idea of these group texts, it just seems like they're so much better. And that's why I would ask the question is, I want to find the tools that travel ball coaches can really leverage to benefit their organizations. So league apps, if you're out there, let's hook up, and coaches, go check it out. Go check. I'll tell you what. I'll put a link to league apps on the show notes for this.
Cool.
Ryan, let me ask you two quick questions. Quick. Is there one thing right now that you wish you could implement in travel baseball without going down a rabbit hole? Is there one thing that you would like to see implemented?
Yeah, I would like to see a defined calendar. You know, mainly because as a college coach, you know, I think they're trying, you know, this is going to come up in April, and we'll see if it happens or not, but just a defined calendar of you play this date to this date, and then everybody can, you know, number one, I think that it's for the health of the player, physical health of the player. I think it's for the mental health of the player. It gives them time off that they need, you know, and then so you don't have to rush right into fall ball. And, you know, I think that would be the biggest thing. We all try to do it, you know, but, you know, things pop up, and but, you know, it's a situation that, I would say defined calendar would be the biggest thing.
All right. Final question for you. What piece of advice would you give a young coach who's either just started out his travel ball organization or is thinking about getting into travel ball? What do you tell that coach?
Oh, well, I would say you have to do it for the right reasons. You know, buy into player development right away. And if that's not a strong suit, learn it. You know, Twitter's a great tool. Instagram's a great tool. We've got a lot of really, really smart guys in this game now that there's no gray area anymore. And so, you know, learn that side of it. Number two, treat the worst player in your organization just like you treat the best player in your organization, and work just as hard for them as you do for the guy that's you know, going to have the most offers.
Yeah.
So,
boy, we've spoken about that. We've spoken about that on this show a few times. That is a huge piece of advice right there.
Yeah, I think those, you know, I think it's important for all the kids that want to play in college do, and you got to help them find the right fit and kind of go from there.
Ryan Wheat, Legends, Sun Devils. I had a lot of fun doing this, man. I appreciate your time.
Rich, thank you, man. It was a lot of fun. I look forward to you know, talking to you again, man.
Yeah, we'll put your contact info, or at least your Twitter and Legends Sun Devils website on the show notes, so people can check out what you guys are doing out there in Louisville. Is it Louisville or Louisville?
It's Louisville.
Oh, that, yeah.
Don't come in this city calling it Louisville.
I'm not sure. Ryan, I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, man. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Sounds good.
Have a good one, man. See ya.
You too.
I'm having so much fun bringing these shows to you each week. If you'd like to recommend a coach for the show, please don't hesitate to shoot me a note at rich@playinschool.com or DM me on Twitter @playinschool. Again, my name is Rich Prado. I'm the founder of Play in School. My goal is to continue to create products and services that add value to you, the travel ball coaches, your players, and their parents. Visit playinschool.com to see some of the ways we're doing that. Or better yet, let's set up a call. Until next time, thank you for listening to Travel Ball Talk.